It's that time of the day, that time of the hour. You know, it's better later than never. I know we've been absent, but here we are. We got something very special lined up for you folks out there in the realm of cryptids, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. It goes by many aliases, right? Is it fair to say?
Yowie, Yeti.
But today, in the outside studio here, we have Eric, Hector, and Tom. So, round of applause.
Yes, round of applause, and
Thank you.
we're gonna get ready to get this party started. We're gonna pour a little something.
In celebration, and we'll announce why we're celebrating, right? This is going to be a very interesting episode today, just because of the discovery, I could say, our fellow friends here have made, and of course, it's in time of celebration. So we're gonna get going with what are we sipping on today, Brad? What you want to tell the people?
Yeah, it's what we are sipping on is called Noble Corazon.
Corazon, okay.
Yep, Licor de Café. So hecho en Mexico.
Okay, perfect. Straight from the motherland.
Noble Heart.
Noble.
Noble Heart. That's what it is.
Noble Heart.
Noble Heart.
Okay, all right, fair enough.
All right, that sounds.
So, Hector and Eric, you guys definitely are no strangers to the podcast. You've been on 2 previous episodes. If you guys haven't checked that out, go check them out. We're everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, every major streaming platform. But today we have a new face. We have Tom with us today. So we're gonna get some introductions here going, of course, and why we're here today. So we've touched on the topic of Bigfoot, Sasquatch. Here in the Pacific Northwest, it is definitely a folklore tale, I guess you could say, right? Is it fair to say is something of a
Mystical?
Mystical. It has to do with some the natives back in the days would tell tales about these creatures, whatever they are, right? So there is history behind this, okay? But Tom, I mean, let's jump right into it. Sasquatch. How did you get into this topic yourself? If you want to give yourself an introduction as well, you're more than welcome as well too.
Yeah, please do.
I'm Tom. I was raised in Alaska, joined the Navy.
Okay.
Defrosted for a few years and ended up in Washington afterwards.
Okay.
In lifelong aviation nut.
Okay. Cool.
But as a kid, I came across a book in the library, and there was a picture of Patty.
Okay.
Patterson-Gimlin.
The Patterson-Gimlin film. Yep.
Yeah, and so that's all. And then there was the Yeti and everything, and all those things, all UFOs and Loch Ness monsters. That's always kind of interested me, and things kind of were always there. The interest was there, but I never really did anything with it. And then back in the early 2000s, we had Finding Bigfoot, and then a friend of mine. I watched a lot of that, and a friend of mine said, "Hey, there's this Squatch Fest down in Kelso, Longview."
I've heard of it. Yeah.
So I said, "What the heck?" I went down there, and I met Cliff Berkman from Finding Bigfoot. And
Yes.
he told me about their podcast.
Yeah.
And I started listening to that, and next thing I know, I'm listening to another podcast, and I'm like caught up on all 250 of their episodes. and I've done listened a lot and learned a lot, and so it made me want to go out in the woods more.
Yeah.
And so a couple years ago, I went down to Mount St. Helens. Just had a good weekend in the sun. Nothing really special. And then the next year, I took a couple buddies from work, not these yahoos over here, and we went down southeast of Mount St. Helens near Skookum Meadows, where in 2001, where they found and cast what appears to be the hip and lower thighs of a squatch that was laying down, reaching, grabbing their gifting stuff.
Oh wow.
And
Okay.
It's in the BFRO. It was a BFRO expedition. I think it was 2001.
Okay.
And so we were kind of down in that neck of the woods, and
BFRO is what?
Bigfoot Researchers
Field Researchers Organization.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Cool.
And they found made this cast, and it was like 200 pounds. It's huge.
Oh,
I haven't seen it, but that's what they say. And so we were out. Me and my buddies, we were out. We did some hooting and hollering at night, but we didn't really go out anywhere because we weren't in a campground. We were out in the middle of nowhere. And the next day, we tried to do this loop hike, and we went across a meadow, and we found a 16-inch foot hole in the ground with toes. And so I'm like, we're thinking, hey, and it was a good inch deep into the ground. We couldn't put any weight in the ground to get anything ourselves. So we took some pictures of it and stuff, and I submitted a report on it, and they looked at it and said, yeah, we think you really have one, but we don't have any other footsteps or any other collaborating evidence, so it's not in their public database.
Okay.
But so that kind of like, oh, this is kind of cool, And then, so me and a buddy, one of the guys, went out this summer to another place, and we think they were elk, but at the time it was pretty friggin' spooky because it was dark and whatnot. But, and ironically, a month later, 2 months later, I got to go on my birthday present from my wife, which was a expedition with the BFRO
Oh,
Amazing.
to the same place. Yeah, it was. I didn't really get to see much. I didn't see anything, but some other people saw some stuff. One of our guys caught some audio, a little bit of chatter, and some wood knocks.
Wood knocks.
Yeah. In September, I had a little extra time off from work, so I said, "Honey, I'm going back to the woods." So I went back, and about the only thing I saw that weekend was a couple F-15s and a big C-117 or C-17 flying through the valley.
Oh,
So-
okay.
that's still a
But-
sight.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
It'd be worth
And
going
then
for that.
I had met Hector at work because we both commented on our stickers on the back of our trucks. And he invited me out to his spot, and we had some fun.
Okay.
Yeah.
So good
Let
leeway.
me just add something about Tom here.
Okay.
Tom is the James Bond of squatching. He got all the cool gadgets.
Okay.
And
I mean,
mind you, this is budget gadgets.
he's got all the cool gadgets. So we pretty much go out there blindly and just do what we do. But Tom, he's got some knowledge that we could really use because we're so rough.
Sure.
Yeah.
We just go up there and we could bring the squatches, but then okay, what do we do now?
Okay.
The-
For sure.
The thing that I've loved about you guys, and I got to go with you guys on a trip one time, and it was amazing. But even without having all of the gadgets and all that, you're still going out there. You know what to look for. You know
What
to listen
yeah,
for.
right.
So the signs. So I mean, just that alone is amazing.
And there's always footprints.
But when you throw in that the gadgetry,
Yeah.
right now you're taking it up another level.
Yes, because for one thing, I felt more confident being out there in the complete darkness because I could see.
Oh,
So any little noise I heard,
So
I could
gadgets
point
that
that
you can
thing.
see at night?
Yes.
Oh.
I have a thermal.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
And it records with the pull of a trigger, so it's very convenient and it's waterproof because our stuff is absolutely in the rain.
Wow. Okay. That's
So
great.
yeah, like I said, he's got the James Bond of the squatching stuff.
Look at that. Wow, Tom.
So let's take it back to that first when you went with the BFRO. So initially, what was the one thing that kind of driven you to continue this, what you would say, research, to go out there and see what you can discover, see what else you can unveil in comparison to what other people have heard? I mean, I've heard about the wood knocks, I've heard about the chatter. I mean, it's fair to say there's definitely something going on out there. I definitely, for me, I would say I stand firm on there's definitely something going on out there that we have no clue what's making all this noise, right?
One of the big people we saw talk was Dr. Jeff Melbourne.
Ooh, I like
And he talked about the foot structure and stuff, and I've seen and heard him in so many different things over the years, and it was like, this is cool. This is I'm in the heart of Squatch land.
Yeah, for sure.
Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
And
That's awesome.
and we're not even going to talk about my trip last October. That was a little more interesting.
Okay. And we're not going to talk about it.
No, we're not going to talk about it.
Okay.
Off air, maybe.
No, fair. Oh,
Yeah,
man.
all right.
Not-
You're saving that for another podcast.
I got
okay.
Okay,
Fair enough.
So, but it was, then long way I found Facebook, finding different groups and stuff, and I found this one guy. He was doing a lot of live broadcasting from Southern Oregon and stuff, and we friended each other, and come to find out, he went to a rival high school back in Anchorage. So it was kind of like
Amazing.
a little bonding right there.
Yeah.
And he invited me out to one of his spots, and
So,
Yeah.
so what is your goal, or what do you think you would do if you ever saw one right there, like in
Well-
front of you, and you had photo, video, everything?
it's. I like to say I'm looking at three options.
Okay.
Either A, I'm going to go up, and a lot of it's going to depend on what it's doing,
Yeah.
but it's going to be like, I might just go, "Hey guy, how's it going?" You know, and whoa, nice squatch, you know. Then it may be like, I better back off here a little bit,
Yeah.
you know. And then
I
there
can
might
tell
be the
you-
time where I need my brown pants.
I can tell you
Yeah, right?
that you'll freeze up. You'll freeze up and you won't be able to move or talk.
Yeah.
So I think I've got to overcome that, because when I do come face to face, and I will, I've got to learn to be able to communicate, to talk to them, relate to them in a calm,
What do you
manner.
think why do you think you freeze up?
Fear. It was straight up
Fear of the unknown.
But you've been, I mean, everything, the
But
stories
he's
that you
never
guys have
been
told.
right there.
Right.
He was right there.
Yeah, but from a story to real life,
Yeah.
complete.
And I
No,
can
I'm
tell
saying
you-
like you guys have gotten so close, and I mean, you guys have been out there for 8 years
Yes.
doing
Oh,
this
yeah.
stuff. Apple drops, getting them closer.
Yes.
You know, you have really
Calling
formed a
them
bond
in.
with them.
Yes, I've got a really good bond with them, and this last trip, man, it was the closest we've ever been, and I froze up. I couldn't pick up my phone. I couldn't talk. I couldn't move for I don't know how long, until finally I started talking and trying to talk to the squatches.
Yeah.
I was so scared I couldn't move for a while. Yeah, so I've got to get over that if I want to interact with them, in a positive way. I've got to get over that fear like that, and I know that.
What about you, Eric?
I'm just going to drop down and hold my hand up. I've seen people do that with an ape when it's charging.
Okay. Okay.
And if it likes you, it'll touch your hand. If not, it'll rip your hand off. So,
It's one or the other.
Wow.
Well, I mean, we were out there with his dog this last time, and that the night before we're walking all around, not a problem. He's having a good time, and then that morning when we found the footprints, he wouldn't go past the camp.
My
He
dog
wouldn't
would
go
not
close. He
leave
would not
my
go
side.
past.
He knew.
He was
huh?
scared.
knew
Yeah,
something.
he smelled
Wow.
it.
Okay,
he,
so-
knew- he sensed something.
So let's take it back to that day. This is a good segue to talk about your most recent, I would say, experience going into the woods, right, with Eric here.
This was 6 days ago.
okay.
Yeah.
So go from day one. Like you mentioned, it was calm, cool day. You guys were enjoying yourself out there, Mother Nature. What do you think changed after that? Like where things got a little more timid, from your
Well,
perspective.
Well, I mean, he took me up the trail to his apple drop, and he's like going, boom, track, boom, track, and I'm looking, yeah, they're not, beat into the ground, but they're the subtle, and you can definitely make out the toes. You can see the shape of the foot, and they're like all over the place.
Yeah.
I've seen more footprints, tracks than I've ever seen before.
So
combined.
How many? How many?
Oh, I didn't count.
Oh,
There's
wow.
too many
many
to
to
count.
count.
Just up the trail to the.
And,
I
and
mean,
from
there was at least, I want to say at least 5 or 6 that I could easily
Identify.
recognize as a footprint.
Yes.
and from your recollection, you guys were pretty much the only people up there.
There was nobody.
Well, there was one truck up.
Oh, that's right. There was one hiker.
I think there was a hiker going up the trail.
He was up the Sulphur Trail.
They're wearing shoes.
Okay.
Yeah.
These
You don't
are
see nobody
not-
out there barefoot at. No
Yeah.
way.
You guys are going way out there too, though.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, where people
There's
there's nobody
Okay.
out there.
Yeah. At this time
Yeah.
of the year, there's nobody out there.
Yeah.
There's a solemn hiker here and there. That's about it.
Okay.
Yeah, I talked talked to some other friends of mine about it, and they're going, "You went way out there."
Okay.
It's deep, deep.
I didn't have any reception when I went out there.
No, you don't.
Nothing.
Still none.
So, in comparison to your own, when you went ahead and did your own travels into the woods, compared to this time when you went with these guys, what were like the first two things that you yourself right away were like, okay, this is different. This is different in comparison to the stuff that I've
just seeing the tracks on the trail.
Seeing the tracks.
And that was right when we got there.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, we hadn't even set up camp yet. He's like,
Yeah,
come
before
on.
we even
I'm
set
like,
up
come on, dude.
camp.
I want to at least get my tent up.
Yeah.
You know, and he's like, no, we're going up the trail. You know.
I think, I mean, it's so cool. I mean, for anybody watching, you know, you said that you listen to a lot of podcasts. That's what got you in there. As someone who has never been on any trip or expedition or anything like that, it was amazing going from a podcast setting where we're just talking about kill boxes, talking about all the structures and the wood knocks and all that, to going out there and then seeing it. Like, whoa, this is what they're talking about.
Yeah.
You know, and it is, I mean, for anybody who's interested in doing that, it was amazing going out with you guys. And are you guys ever planning on opening up to where other people could?
That's an option that we've been thinking about, because one of my cousins from Arizona asked me if I do Squatch expeditions for people from out of state, and I told her, nah, not right now.
Yeah.
But I never really thought about it till recently.
Sure. Yeah, I think you mentioned something like that before the last episode. You were
Yeah.
thinking about going down that route. So,
We're also thinking of framing some of our
Findings.
findings.
Oh, man.
for sure, which we're definitely going to share here on the podcast, some exclusive stuff of the findings these gentlemen came across for sure. But yeah, so I mean, just from my personal perspective, obviously, I think after the first episode we did, I would say a couple years back, I did my own digging, and I think the really crazy one, like we've talked about off the pod yesterday, was the Todd Standing one.
Yes. Oh,
That one was crazy.
Yeah.
That one, and then it really opened this wormhole of just different findings from various people. And then the other one was obviously like the samurai chatter with that one gentleman in California in the
Yes.
forest.
Yeah,
that was
that-
crazy.
Yeah, Moorhead.
Moorhead, yes, yes, Ron Moorhead. But yes, okay. So day 2 is the first day you guys went up there. That's when you found the footprints, right? Let's get into the footprints now.
Also,
Okay.
before we even did that,
Okay,
Oh.
we found a week prior to going there,
okay,
we found light footprints in the sand of the bank there because the water was down.
okay.
Well, we went up there to go check again.
Yeah,
And the water had came up too much, destroyed the ones that were there. There was
Yep.
no footprints around. Then we get into the next day. That
So
was fun.
let me talk about after we came down from the mountain. Me and Tom set up camp, and we got to squatching probably around midnight, and it started getting real active around 1:30, 2 in the morning. Where we started, I saw 2 sets of eye shine, and they were on the same position on the mountain, which was pretty up high, and one flickered. And then, like a second later, the other one flickered and then gone. But then after that, we heard the rocks. They're throwing rocks in the water. You hear kaplunk, kaplunk, kaplunk. So me and Eric jump in the SUV and we go up and we put in our lights. Where we're thinking where these things are, and nothing. That whole time we were doing that, they were sneaking up behind us.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
That's it.
How did you know they were sneaking behind you?
Like in the morning when we went there.
Well,
Wow.
Oh, that's
How.
it was.
Yeah, and those were completely by accident.
Yeah. That was,
Completely by accident. I was taking the dog out to go to the restroom,
Yeah.
okay.
and I'm like, I'm gonna check this sandbank just one more time, walk through it. So I tied Tank to the tree so he could ruin the prints if there was any.
Yeah.
Went through there and
Amazing.
So if you go back through my Squatch P&W videos, you'll see that the majority of the prints that we're pulling are coming along the edge of the river. So they followed, and the night that he snuck up on me before this time, which was June of 2019, I believe, where he was 25 feet from the camp, same thing, snuck up on me on the river, left me a nice print in Dead Salmon Cove. Dead Salmon Cove, the next one over is Three Toe Cove, where we found this treasure trove of footprints. And so that little area is a hot spot. So, excuse me. Me and Eric were talking about baiting it since it leaves the best prints. But here's the thing: on that side of the river, the creek, you only get the small ones. You go to the other side, and there's the jumbos or the toads. Like that.
24 inches.
So
long,
when me and
like
Eric
18
were, me and
inches.
Eric were on the other side looking, we found some humongous big, but by now we're so charged up because we got so much action around us. So we said this is something we're going to look at tomorrow, and then we went back to camp and then we just kept squatching, which turned out to be if exactly because after that we got into our bags and then this one it started getting really interesting.
I felt bad for my dog the whole time. The whole time he was having his experience, my dog is a 110-pound pit bull. Crying, would not come out of the truck. I thought he had to use the restroom. So I get out of the truck and I put him to his leash. I'm like, come on. He would not budge.
No,
Would
And
not.
instinctively, dogs have like a
sense
keen
it.
sense, right? Where,
Right.
like if they
And I've-
sense something's going on, they're not gonna want to budge. Like I heard stories where dogs like they sense something right away. If in situations like that.
Well,
Like,
you see it on the Bigfoot videos that come out like on the internet. When there's a sighting, if there's a dog, he's going batshit crazy and running.
yeah.
And what's crazy is the first day we got there, he was like happy-go-lucky, running everywhere, didn't care. But the next morning came, he wouldn't go past the camp.
And he would stay right close. He wouldn't go very far from us at all. And usually he wanders, but not that.
Oh, yeah, dogs had since we had 2 grizzlies when we were in Denali.
Okay.
It was a sow and 2 cubs came down off the hill while we were sitting in our truck. They were 50 feet from us, and our dog. You could see the dogs in the back of the truck just all tensed up,
Yeah.
and they weren't barking, they weren't growling or nothing.
Yeah, Tank didn't bark once.
They knew better.
Yeah. Oh
He
yeah,
just
definitely.
stood it like petrified, shaking like he was freezing cold, but it was warm in there.
Okay, so now we get to the part where I'm getting in my sleeping bag. This is where it gets good. I'm getting in my sleeping bag and I'm getting comfortable and I'm getting, and all of a sudden I hear something. It's raining already. I can hear the rain. All of a sudden I hear something hit my tent right by the little flap for the chimney. And I'm thinking to myself, that could have been a pine cone. But then I'm looking and I got my eye on that stupid little flap where the chimney is, and that thing's moving and there's no wind, and I'm frozen. Now I'm frozen. I can't move, and I'm staring at that little line right there, and it's moved twice, and I can't move. So it took a little while before I think Tom heard me. I started talking to Junior and say, okay, Junior, it's cool. Welcome to the camp. Thank you for coming. So finally I got enough courage to go outside, but now it's raining good. And I go look outside the tent to see if I see any footprints, and
Nothing.
not a dang thing. So I say, okay, I'll take it at that. I jump in the bed, go to bed. The next morning we get up, and I don't know who found it. Was it
I found the one in that other tent site. Yeah,
Okay, so
Tom
you
found
the
it
one on the
right in
tent
the
side.
tent
Okay.
site.
Okay.
So talk about that one.
yeah. It was. I didn't measure it, but it was. You could see the toes and the whole shape of the foot, and it was pretty firm sand, so it didn't go deep.
And mind you, we scanned the day before just for this reason. We all scanned around looking for footprints in case there was something, and we didn't, we could identify it the next day.
And then we could see like fresh dirt kicked up onto a leaf
The way
by the
they
heel,
would walk.
Yeah.
That's how
flip the
fresh.
sand.
Just it was kind of like the one.
and it hadn't been rained on. The
Yep.
dirt on the leaf.
So you're talking minutes,
Like
hours,
hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Wow.
And now after that, my hair stood up because I knew I was talking to Junior.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So, man, I mean, we weren't here 10 minutes before I called Brad. I had to tell somebody.
Oh yeah. Some Hector calling me. I'm like, man, he only calls me when there's something big.
That's when you told me, right? You really messaged me like, "Yo, we need to jump on this."
Yeah.
Like staff for sure. So that's why we're here, right?
And
Right.
and,
Yeah.
and you did not fail to deliver either.
Yeah.
Oh no.
Thanks, guys.
We've got evidence.
Yeah.
For sure.
Do we want to look at it?
Yeah, maybe
yeah.
let's pull it out. Let's definitely show the
grab
lovely viewers, as Eric here will get up and show the camera, the findings of a Bigfoot footprint.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So one
a
of the-
real. I mean, this is
So,
the first one I've ever seen.
Tom did all the documenting. He took the stride. He took the size of the prints. He laser scanned the prints. And then he also was the main casting person. So,
Okay.
yeah, Tom put in all the,
Right there, ladies
the
and gentlemen.
scientific work.
An official footprint
So
This is the first for the Be Honest Position podcast for sure. So
how tall or what's the measurements of this?
Tom?
Was it about 11 inches toe to heel?
Yeah.
About four and a half across.
So how big are we thinking that this Mamba Jamba is?
900 pounds.
900 pounds.
900
Mind you,
pounds. Wow.
I'm pretty sure this is Junior. He's been taking our apple since he was a baby.
And that was in the sand.
Yes.
And how deep was it in the sand? About an inch in. Yeah, look at this.
That one was only
About a half.
half an inch.
Half an inch.
Okay.
Now this one,
This
that was a full
it's
inch and a
heavy.
half. In,
Wow. That is, and I don't know if the cameras will do this, but we'll post pictures.
yeah, we'll post pictures
that
for
have
sure along with this when
closer
this drops.
shots.
Oh yeah.
But that's, I mean, look at the definition there. That's
And like they stated, right? Who would be walking out there? Like the first thing to me that comes to question, right? People are gonna be like, "Well, it could be somebody walking out there."
Oh, hey, listen to this.
yeah,
I had these guys jump on the sand.
yeah, exactly. That's what you guys were saying,
Yeah.
right?
And they wouldn't move it.
And I couldn't budge the sand.
Insane.
Right?
and,
Yeah.
couldn't leave it
Insane.
And in full disclosure, too, we did find what appeared to be a human footprint nearby.
oh,
But it was, again, very shallow in the sand and a very definitive arch versus the.
Did
The
you ever
flat
look?
foot.
I showed these guys the blow up of it, and you can see that his arch extends out more. It crushes the ridges of the top of the raindrop things. I'll show you.
You're
here.
talking about these footprints.
No, about
Oh,
the other one
one
that
that
looked
looked
human. The one that we zoomed in on it on my phone, and you can see where it's crushed the ridges of the sand.
The raindrops.
I'll show you after. But yeah, so the arch does extend out a lot further than what you see
Yeah.
there. So what happened was like the same thing that happened with my 2019 one. When he leaps, he's putting more pressure on one side, and therefore you'll get really good toe definition on on one side of it, and as the other side, depending on which way he's leaping, you will not get it.
Yeah.
This thing was leaping right,
Yeah.
but I'll show you that here.
I'm a skeptical believer.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
I want good, hard evidence
right.
before I say, yeah, that is a squatch.
Okay.
I'll
Okay.
say
That's good.
It looks like a squatch. I think it's a squatch. I'm not sure it's a squatch.
For
I
sure.
didn't see a squatch leave it. So unless I
Right.
I get, I can be pretty freaking pumped about this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah.
And this is the kind of guy I want with us on
Exactly.
our
For
trip.
sure. No, it's always good to have good perspective.
The
Yeah, yeah.
critic, right?
What I like having
Yeah.
a skeptical believer is you're not willing to let your credibility go to waste. You know, because the credibility when it comes to this stuff, there are so many people who
Try to
are
fake it.
doubters, and then you have the
And then you have
scammers,
the
right?
people that try to ruin it for
Yeah,
everybody.
for sure, for sure.
But that's like with everything.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
so
go ahead.
so you were so just to point out for the people listening and watching this, you were saying there was a human foot comparison that you had something there to compare it to this finding that we saw right there that they stood out right difference wise.
They definitely look
So
different.
why would there be a human foot out there with?
Barefooted in the middle of nowhere while we're there, and this thing was fresh.
And there was nobody in these
That's
cameras.
what I'm saying.
But like I said, I showed you guys a picture yesterday, and I showed you the ridges of the rain
conical drops,
that got
bro.
smushed, but you couldn't see them until you zoomed in on it, and it extended the arch of that foot out a lot farther.
Almost
So
another.
his skepticism on that one was of the arch, but the arch extends because it crushes the ridges of those raindrop, patterns. And I'll show it to him later.
Okay.
We'll see what he says. He might not say, okay, but I think he will.
Okay.
I think after I show him what I got, I think he will agree that it was a squatch leaping to the right.
Yeah. Wow. That's so crazy.
Yeah, because there's nobody going to be running
Oh, yeah.
around out there in the middle of nowhere and barefoot.
It was a right foot,
Yeah.
and if he leaped to his left, that would have taken him right to the other 2 foot, the 2
Yep.
foot
Yeah.
Oh.
cast.
Yeah.
And we did see a couple other, not really printable
Castable print.
Castable,
ones.
yes.
But
Yeah, they're just
So
everywhere.
like a number of them then.
Yeah,
Like,
oh,
yeah.
I
Like
mean, they're
With a
just,
stride. We got the stride with this ones
it
too.
was 40 inches heel to heel.
Oh man, that's crazy.
This one's not full grown yet.
I think I'd be with Hector here, and if I saw anything, I would just go frozen stiff.
I got to get over that. I mean, I have to get over that. I got to be.
But Tom, I mean, I got to give
I'm
it to you.
I'm still sitting up, and before these guys got out of bed, because I went to bed a little earlier than they did.
Yeah.
And I heard them go drive off in the truck. I'm going, great, they're leaving me behind.
And he was hanging there like cougar meat in one of those
In a hammock.
I'm in a camping hammock. So, But the next
No,
morning,
we
they're-
wouldn't do
they're,
that.
They're not out of bed yet. So I'm like getting up. I'm walking around. I'm shooting some video of some of the creek side and stuff. And I'm always going, yeah, what's up there? I'm more worried about cougars than I'm
Yeah.
watch, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, and that's a hot area.
I
but-
still
Been there.
Brett knows.
I've never seen a cougar in the wild. So
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I have
twice
terrible
there,
hearing, so
too.
and they're very quiet, and they come up from behind, so I'm deathly afraid of cougars.
yeah.
yeah, that's the
They're
thing.
cougar bait, dude.
Yeah, I am.
Because in June when I was out, there was we were hiking along the thing, and that's when we thought we heard some owls, and we heard some elk, and then we thought we heard a dog bark close to this elk, but it was 100 yards across the meadow up in a hill somewhere, and there's no trails, nothing. Me and my buddy hiked back that way the next day, and it's just down logs and trees.
Really?
Yeah, it wasn't easy. But before we heard that, we were walking along, and we were kind of checking things out. It was dusk, and all of a sudden we heard something lapping water out of a puddle or something.
Like a splash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it was,
Oh, it was a lapping,
like
like
a
drinking.
dog drinking.
Oh,
from
drinking water. Oh,
Right.
okay.
maybe 20 yards away.
Wow.
And we never saw it. We heard it take like 2 steps, and then nothing.
Was it like a thud? Like a.
No, it was just like barely even heard it walk away. And
That's what's scary. It'd be that heavy.
And then you're
that
quiet.
light-footed.
And that's what they're known for too. I've heard that they're super, like, for something that massive, right? You would think the impact they would leave sound wise.
Well, you know,
But
I'm
they're
thinking
so-
that
it
they're.
could have been a cat too.
Yeah.
I'm
Look at
thinking that
gorillas.
they use the sound of the water to hide their sound when they move. These things are stealthy. I mean, the ultimate hide and seek champions. of
For sure.
course.
Yeah, right?
The title holders.
So
yeah.
these things they know what to do so that you won't see them. You won't hear unless they want you to.
So, Tom, what your theory then on how they are able to stay so elusive for so long? I mean, we've heard them all the way from Native Americans, you know, the indigenous people of the land have seen them, have stories about them, and up into this day, and nobody can seem to get one.
I think it's just they know the land. They live out there 24/7. It's just their instinct.
We're
like
visitors.
many creatures are very good at hiding.
What about cloaking?
I've heard some stories on cloaking, but I'm kind of the skeptical believer kind of thing.
Yeah, I think.
I think the ones with the cloaking abilities have something to do with the corroboration of UAPs in the area.
That's possible.
I think that they're shapeshifters. They're not actually squatches, but they're actually.
Well, in the Unica Mountains, they say, they're shapeshifters. They've seen them shapeshift. They've seen them cloak.
I was at Squatch Fest, and there was a gentleman telling me a story of a group of natives going up in I can't remember if it was British Columbia or Southeast Alaska. They were in a boat, and they see this guy walking along the beach out in the middle of nowhere. Well, they're thinking, oh, this guy must be shipwrecked or something. We should go oversee. And then they got closer. They realized it was a squatch, and it kind of turned on. It kept going their steps. And then I can't remember. I think he said all of a sudden it just morphed into like a sea otter or a
Oh, wow.
or something
Oh,
like
wow.
that, and then just off into the trees.
Wow. Skinwalker.
So that, I mean,
That's
so you
scary.
talk
Yeah.
about the elk and hearing the dog, and then not
Transition.
seeing anything. I mean, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
See, and there's just so many things
it'd
with
be-
this.
It'd be a good time for a break.
Yeah.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be back right here. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back from taking a little minor break, of course. So one thing we did talk about before jumping right in is some of the stories revolving around Sasquatch, the Yeti, Bigfoot, etc. Right? And one of the stories that Eric had brought up goes back to 1959, January 27th. And I'm going to read a little summary of what we were referring to. A 10-member group consisting mostly of students from the Ural Polytechnic Institute, led by a 23-year-old Igor Dyatlov, all-season cross-country and downhill skier, set off on a 14-day expedition to the Gora Otorantin Mountain in the northern part of the Soviet Sverdlovsk Oblast. At the time of the year, a route of this kind was classified Category 3, the riskiest category, with the temperature falling as low as negative 30 degrees Celsius. On January 28th, one member of the expedition, Yuri Yudin, decided to turn back. He never saw his classmates again. When the group's expected return date to the departure point, the village of Vizai, came and went. A rescue team set out to search for them. On February 26th, they found the group's tent badly damaged on the slopes of Kholat Sikla, translated as Death Mountain, some 20 kilometers, 12.4 miles south of the group's destination. The group's belongings had been left behind. Further down the mountain, beneath an old Siberian cedar tree, they found 2 bodies clad only in socks and underwear. 3 other bodies, including that of Dyatlov, were subsequently found between the tree and the tent site. Presumably, they had succumbed to the hypothermia while attempting to return to the camp. 2 months later, the remaining 4 bodies were discovered in the ravine beneath a thick layer of snow. Several of the deceased had serious injuries, such as fractures to the chest and skull. So that's one where you were saying, Eric, that it was a Yeti.
Yeah.
That caused this, pretty much.
Oh, yeah. Well, in all the pictures of that story, there's a famous picture called Picture 17.
Okay.
Every one of the hikers kept a diary. And one of them, every one of them had a camera. And in one of the rolls, in Picture 17, there's what looks like to be a Sasquatch in a tree, or a Yeti. Well, that area was known for nuclear-type testing and missile-type testing. And they would shoot off hundreds of rockets there just to test. And he was just probably gone crazy from radiation.
Okay.
And they wanted to, what they did is they set in like a super spy. One guy that did not belong in that group. He was a 39-year-old guy who went on a group with a bunch of college kids. Mm-hmm. He was the only guy that was also found with 2 cameras. At the time, cameras cost about $2,000.
Yeah, pretty expensive.
This
back in
guy
the days.
had 2 cameras, which is unheard of. Not only that, but he did not fit the build for any of them. None of them knew him until they got to that town where they had their base camp. Mm. And he was basically, by the authorities, forced upon this guy. So they think he was an implant from the KGB to monitor when they set off these rockets to agitate this, so he could film what happens when the Yetis attack. Mm. Because during that time, Stalin was trying a program to find super soldiers, and they wanted the blood of a Yeti to infuse with a human to become super soldiers.
Mm. Dang.
So I know for a fact, back in that time, the Nazis, right? Was it Nazis?
Yeah.
They were doing weird, like just different weird kinds of tests with humans. Like that was, written down in like.
Yeah, Heinrich Hummer was the closest person ever in history who was also a general in the Nazi army to come close to a hybrid human. But it had no way of controlling it. So they put it down. And he also traveled with the body all the way to its place. And they have an interview with him on YouTube. You can watch that whole interview. He'll tell you everything in detail.
Interesting. Okay. So yeah, that's the story, of course, what happened during that incident. I've heard it before. That was one of the stories too that were, till this day, they really can't give an explanation on what happened.
Yeah, and then
they can't.
20 years later, 1993 or something
50 years later.
Yeah, 50 years later, 1993. Different part, but same area known for Yeti. Another set of 6 hikers go out.
It's a follow-up expedition.
No, this was a different one. These guys were completely on a different side of the mountain, different. Well, they went out, and as they were going through this meadow, one of the hikers started bleeding out of his ears and his eyes, and then just collapsed, started foaming from his mouth, and died.
Whoa.
Perfectly healthy 20-year-olds. Second one, same thing. After she was trying to help him, she started suffering the same symptoms. third one, it affected her so bad, she grabbed a stone and bashed her own brain in.
Oh my god.
I didn't hear about that. Oh.
What they're saying is it was a Yeti infrasound attack.
Interesting.
What gives them that idea?
No traces of radiation, no traces of bodily harm, and the coroner said that it was a mysterious power that was not human. Whatever did this was not human.
What's that? That one weapon that one where like people were experiencing like headaches and
You're talking about the Cuba syndrome?
yes, Cuba syndrome. So explain that, Brett. That sounds similar to kind of like this, right? So what is the theory behind that?
Yeah, the theory is that the Soviets made some sort of weapon like that they have imported it to Cuba, and then so any American person of in the government going down to Cuba, they have been complaining when they come home with nausea, headaches. Some people have even got brain damage from it. But it's just something where they can't hear anything, they can't see anything, and then they're coming home and they're just sick, just like that.
Okay,
just
I
like
got
that.
one.
Yeah.
So on Expedition Bigfoot, I believe it was, they're hot on the trail of some Squatches, and they're getting like really close, and all of a sudden, two of the researchers started getting sick, feeling nauseous and a headache, and it just came on like real on all of a sudden, and they're hot on the trail of the Squatches, and they even talked about that on their. If there was a possibility that they compared it to like a lion growl, where it affects your body, it has something to do with your resonance frequency.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they have experienced this in the field also, and I believe it's a warning or some kind of a tool for interlopers where they can let them know, hey, you're not welcome here.
For sure.
You've come far enough.
Yep.
Instead of using a boundary marker, they're using infrasound.
Yeah. Well, I think they got too close to something important. and
Tom, have you
they
ever
started-
heard anything along those lines?
I've heard of infrasound, and they talk about how it can affect you. I mean, they say elephants and I think lions
Tiger.
could potentially. I mean, in fantasy lore, they always talk about dragons and dragon fear, and just the mere presence of seeing one was enough to scare the tar
picture
out
some
of
kind of
you.
paralysis
Yeah.
type deal. Yeah.
I mean, a couple of years ago over Spokane, they have a wildcat sanctuary,
Yes.
and you can feed a tiger. And I love tigers. I wanted a tiger.
Really?
Yeah, they're cool.
Everybody wants a tiger.
And so I've got to feed the tiger. So they
Yeah.
give you like 5 chicken necks, and you put the chicken neck through your finger like this, and then you put it through the chain link fence, and this tiger comes up, and he just takes that chicken neck ever so gently from my finger, and you see these fangs like that, and I'm going, nice kitty, good kitty. And they say, once you start, you have to give him all 5.
Yeah.
Because he knows he's supposed to get 5.
Oh wow.
And he wasn't threatening. He was gentle. But I'm just like going, yeah, I am not getting a tiger for that.
Well, what were those magicians? One of them got killed by a tiger.
Siegfried and Roy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Was it like one of the white tigers?
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh.
Oh, that's
Siberian,
impressive. It was
those
an
are
impressive
heinous,
show. I
too.
went,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Right on.
And that's those are people that trained with them every
Train
day.
with them every day.
Yeah,
Oh
but
yeah.
still,
They'll
wild
snap.
animal,
Yeah.
no
They'll
matter
still snap.
what it is, like
Yeah.
chimps.
Okay. So
Chimps are good for like 5 years. Then
yeah.
Snap.
So Tom, any stories that you would want to share, like of like any past stories, like we've shared about the incident in Russia. Then we talked about the Bigfoot expedition story about people like falling into some type of paralysis. Have you heard anything of interest from back like history, Sasquatch history?
Well, this 100 years ago,
Okay.
in July, I can't remember the exact date, Ape Canyon.
Okay.
This is one of the most famous
Yes.
stories.
Oh, is it
was
about the cabin?
Yeah, about the cabin.
Okay,
the
yeah.
miners outside it.
Yes.
South near doggone it, I can't remember the name of the town, but it's southeast or to the south side of Mount St. Helens, and they had a cabin and they were mining this thing, and one guy went to the spring to get some water, and as he's getting water, basically a squatch comes out and surprises this dude. And of course, all he can think of is, I gotta shoot this big monster, and he shoots it, and it gets up and runs away. So he hightails it back to the cabin and said, "Hey, I just saw this huge thing, you know, a big hairy man and stuff." And they or I can't remember what they did, but they ended up going into the cabin that night. And that night, multiple squatches came back, and they were throwing large rocks on the thing. They knocked a hole through the ceiling.
They got attacked.
Yeah, they were out for revenge, and they and they're like trying to shoot through things, and there's a lot of stories or a lot of details I can't remember, but they managed to make it through the night, and come dawn, things quieted down. They beat feet, left everything behind.
They aggressively chased him out.
1924, that's when it
Yeah.
was, when it took place.
Yeah.
This was Abe Canyon, Mount St. Helens, Washington, by the Lewis River area.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah, I've heard of that.
For that story, that one stood
famous.
out too, where they didn't know what it was, and they were like chucking rocks at this cabin where they were at, and they were just getting harassed. Like,
The most
wasn't-
recent
Wasn't
one.
there something in you're local here, right? Or have been, and you're local as well. I'm kind of an import, so. But there was a story in the Everett Herald about a Sasquatch sighting where somebody had got a rock thrown at his truck.
Yes,
That was in the Everett Herald.
Yeah.
yes. There's been a few in there, but yeah, that was a good one.
The most recent one was the Cascade Bigfoot guy.
Cascade Bigfoot.
That one's messed up.
He
Sorry,
got
my
aggressively
military
chased
helicopter is going to pick me up here.
All of a sudden, we're talking about Bigfoot. You know they're gonna be.
out. Hey, we haven't even dove into the UFOs yet. Come on.
Yeah.
They're monitoring.
Perfect.
So yeah, I'm trying to look up that recent one about the Herald. You said there was an incident where there was a rock chucked at,
That-
at a
I think
driver.
that was
Guy-
Cascade Bigfoot. guy.
Cascade.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he was out smoking a cigarette.
Okay.
I think
No,
wrote an
that's the
article.
one in Granite Falls. He was out smoking a cigarette. He saw him in his trash, and it scared him so bad he froze.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
what I'm
that's the
thinking.
one. That's the one that got me to squatch it.
Oh, really?
yeah.
That's
there
the
you go.
story.
That's the
Remember, you
story?
guys posted it on our last podcast,
really?
or the first one.
Okay.
Yeah, it was Everett Herald about. And
Right here.
It was in Granite Falls.
Okay, here we go. All Chris Wright wanted was his midnight cigarette. He thinks he got a Bigfoot instead. I was not a firm believer in Bigfoot, said Wright, 29, a broadcast communications tower manager. But after last night, I'm rethinking that. Wright stepped out in the back of the porch of his residence near Iron Mountain Rock Quarry around midnight Sunday to have his nightly cigarette. I do that because I don't smoke in the house, he said. After lighting his cigarette, Wright walked off the porch and into the yard. That activated the motion detectors and security lights came on. At that point, I heard a loud, high-pitched yell, and he said, I turned and looked to my right, and that's when I saw him. I was looking right at the son of a gun. The creature stood about 7 feet tall, was dark in color, and seemed to have fur. Wright said he stood on two legs at the tree line about 75 feet away. When the lights came on, he ran into the woods. Wright said it sounded like a human running through the woods. Wright had an experienced hunter said it wasn't a bear. Bears don't run like that, he said. Wright said he didn't waste any time getting back into the house. I have guns in my gun case, and I was going for them when I decided to wake up my roommate and tell him what I saw. Wright said. At first he sort of laughed at me, but then he could see how shaken I was, and he began to believe me. Wright said he had seen a television show on Bigfoot sightings a few weeks ago. On that broadcast, a tape of a Bigfoot yell was played. When I heard sounded just like that, he said. That's why I know this was Bigfoot. When morning came, Wright went out to look for footprints but found none. Then he called Cliff Crook, a Bigfoot expert. Crook of Bothell, said he knows of other Bigfoot sightings near and along the Mountain Loop Highway. The last one was back in 1994. Crook said that one was near Verlat in the Roe Valley. Crook said in the case of two motorists saw a huge hairy thing across the highway. Crook followed up on that one, but didn't find any clues because of the rocky terrain. In all, Crook knows of about 7 reports of Bigfoot sightings in the Granite Falls area. Most were in the 1970s. Crook, who has been researching Bigfoot for 44 years, plans to go to the area today and hunt for clues. He'll look for places where Bigfoot may have rubbed trees for fur droppings at the base of trees and for any signs of hatches through the trees and brushes. I want to find out what was in the area, he said, and all I have ways of screening out any fakes. Although 90% of Bigfoot sightings prove to be mistakes, Crook said Wright sounds genuine. Personally, he thinks there are about 100 Sasquatches throughout the Northwest. It's been a while since there is a good report up in that area, he said. This may be it. Granite Falls Police, however, said they didn't get any calls about Bigfoot sightings Sunday night. I haven't ever gotten any in 5 years I've been here, Officer Rich Michelson said. Wright said that the clearing along the Mountain Loop Highway in recent mountains for the new CSR Associated Gravel Quarry may have upset Bigfoot and sent him into more populated areas. But Warren Hockrick, spokesman for CSR, said employees haven't reported seeing any signs of Bigfoot. Wright worries that people will think he's nuts. I thought all those guys who said they saw Bigfoot were loony, he said, but I know what I saw. It had to be a Bigfoot. Nothing else is that big or that tall.
So that's what got me squatching.
That's
Okay.
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, this fall I went
sorry.
out toward Verlat. And
Okay.
I didn't see anything or anything, but I took a chance. I saw a Forest Service law enforcement truck alongside the road, so I stopped, pulled over, and I talked to him. Said, "Hey, like I'm kind of an amateur cryptid researcher, and I said, if you had heard or seen anything." And he says, "Nah, you're in the wrong area. You need to go over by Darrington."
Oh, wow. Wow. Just
So
like that, huh?
they're in the know and they're willing to help.
Then that
was awesome.
that's all he would say.
Well, that's where the Jim
Yeah.
Creek
Yeah.
ability is too.
Yeah.
Wow. There is a hot spot.
Okay,
That's
let's,
cool.
Let's
That's
jump
cool.
into that. I think this is the perfect moment to definitely jump into we said Jim Creek, right?
Yeah.
And this is regarding UAPs, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay, so just tell us a little bit about Jim Creek, like what you know of, and just kind of like what you've heard through the grapevine. I mean,
Well,
anybody?
let me take it from here because
Okay.
I've been there before,
Okay.
and I've been there way back before the military put up their titanium wall.
The King Kong barrier.
Their King Kong, yeah, that's what it looks
kidding,
like.
huh?
So they put up the. So I got there before. I went there before all that happened, and I was back there, and I was in the woods, and I saw the sign, but I didn't pay attention to it. So I'm walking in the woods, just tromping around, and all of a sudden, 2 short patrol come out of nowhere with weapons, and they kindly escort me out of the woods.
Okay.
4.
So they showed me the sign that says U.S. government property, trespassing, blah, blah, blah. So, oops, sorry, I wasn't paying attention. So, yeah, I was escorted out at gunpoint. And
They
this was,
didn't give you a warning or anything. They just said, "Hey, you can't be here." Get out of here."
right. This is a secret property. I forgot what he said. But they were in fatigues, and then they had the black band with the SP on it. And, yeah, I felt a little intimidated.
Yeah.
So I walked out. I did exactly what they said, and I didn't go back. And I didn't think nothing of it.
Yeah.
Well, later on, after I talked to the doctor,
Yeah.
he told me that that's the number one site for sightings in Western Washington.
Interesting.
And that kind of surprised me. So that's how I found out about the titanium wall, because me and my son cruised up there. We're gonna go look for a site where I could park and maybe gaze
Yeah.
and see what we see. And they put up, like Eric says, it looks like just to keep King Kong in.
Yeah.
it's just a solid steel wall, whereas before there was nothing there.
Nothing there. So all of a sudden, this wall just kind of appeared,
Right.
for whatever reason, right?
Right.
Okay, so this is what's crazy about this, right? We're talking about Jim Creek. There's a Reddit post here that was added 5 years ago by this gentleman, LexLam20. And the title of this is, UFO sightings are kind of common where I live, Arlington, Washington, but never like what I saw last night. So this is an actual posting for somebody that saw something that 5 years ago. UFO sightings are kind of common where I live in Arlington, Washington, but never like what I saw last night. A largish, circular, yellowish white saucer flying super fast, going straight. I only saw it disappear behind a tree, but my boyfriend standing about 10 feet away and to the left saw it stop and turn right. We live right by next to a watershed behind a bunch of trees, and all we see is that it goes way deep down in a little bit of water, but it's about a mile long and a mile wide, surrounded by a fence with no entry signs all over it. He thinks that the UFOs are attracted to it. And with this virus going around and people going manic, we don't know exactly what to think as to why this sighting was so strange and different. Every other time it seems like an occurrence that could have been our eyes playing tricks on us, but this time it was so real and clear that we reported to the UFO hotline. If anyone's had any experience like this or knows what could possibly be, please let me know.
Wow.
Bam.
Oh yeah.
Thank you very much.
So, Tom, do you have UAP?
Any, like, are you a believer? Like, what is your perspective
Opinion.
on that?
Yeah, perspective.
Well, the closest thing I've personally seen, I could not make it out as a flying saucer or anything like that. I was in a nice little place when I was in the Navy called Diego Garcia.
Okay.
It's an island in the middle of the friggin' Indian Ocean. I mean, it's way out in the middle of nowhere. And a couple of us after work on Saturday night, we're out at the beach and it just pitch black, stars are everywhere. And I noticed what I thought was a satellite. And as it's going across, I'm watching this satellite, and all of a sudden it does a 90-degree turn, then backs up, and then goes back across and kind of zigzags.
That ain't a satellite.
Yeah, that's not a satellite. But that's the only thing I've seen. I had a coworker when I was in Alaska. He was flying an air taxi, and they said they saw something out there, and it was doing stuff that no human-built plane could do.
Interesting.
And then another coworker, about 25 years ago, his brother, total skeptic, non-believer, is out with some friends in the Cascades camping somewhere, I don't know where. But they said they're sitting around the campfire, and all of a sudden this saucer came over their campsite, shined this light right down on top of him.
Whoa.
That's
just like everybody talks about when they see a squatch and they come in and the buddy doesn't believe him. His brother, he could tell his brother had seen something, and it just his brother wasn't the same after that.
Wow.
Really?
Like, yeah, it freaked him out pretty good.
Interesting.
What else it did to him with that beam of light they beamed him with, right?
That's crazy. So, you, Brett, you've also did we recount your experience here on the podcast about what you had
talked
seen?
about it like right after it happened.
Okay.
I think we should cover that.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking. I mean, we're there.
We're there.
We're there. It was the night of the geo storm that we had here.
Just a couple
few months back.
Yeah, October.
And so we're out. I mean, the sky is just, and I saw it. It was just like, I mean, we're in our backyard right here, and I'm like, oh look, it's starting to get colorful in the sky, and so I could see this weird, spot in the sky. Well, so I go up.
You have a thing.
And so
covering it.
if you go look over this area, it's Navy, right? All military.
Yes.
Well, I look over in that area right before it was like 9:44 when I saw it, and it was like right before the lights started getting like the Northern Lights looking thing.
Yeah.
Right before all that started, I look over in the Navy area, and there's this. It looked like it was a bunch of spheres, like looked like bubbles, like how when you blow bubbles, it has that.
That iridescent.
Rainbow looking
Translucent.
color. Translucent. That's exactly what I called it, was translucent. So it was in the shape of like a pool table when it had racked balls. And so it was all the balls. It was just a bunch of spheres, but in a triangular shape. But no lights. It looked like it was super light.
How big?
How?
Size?
So it was like two Suburbans back to back. On equal sides. So it was big, but it was not moving in any weird shape. It was just hovering. It was just, that's all it was doing. And it was
Floating.
the angle I saw it I saw it go right below the house line, right over here, and it was at an angle, so it was just kind of just going below the house line, and then I didn't get to see it anymore. I saw it like 10 seconds worth of what I saw. I tell my wife, I'm like, babe, I said, not only now the lights are on outside, but you're not going to believe what I just saw. She does not believe what I saw, but it didn't scare me. I mean, here's what scared me: the fact that it was in the military, in the Navy. Right. And I didn't want government attention. I didn't want some black Suburban coming up into my house and telling me, you didn't see what you saw. Right. You need to be quiet about it. But, I've talked about it a couple times and no one's ever said anything. So it's not anything that scares me anymore. But at the time, I wrote everything down.
Yeah.
Made sure, if anything happens to me, here's what I saw. Here's where I saw it. Here's when I saw it.
Yeah, but I remember that.
I've never ever seen anything before
like that
ever, and since.
You know that Washington State is the #1 state for UAP in the entire country.
That's what I've heard.
That's true.
Not only
I just
that,
Googled that, yeah.
But the highest volume of cryptid, not only Sasquatch.
So, do you think they're related?
I think
some of them are,
because there's been so many reports of they see lights before they actually see a Squatch. And then there's that one thing that we read about that the military base where a flying saucer came down and a Squatch ran to it. And then just yesterday, I think I was seeing something correlating the two together again. I don't remember what I was seeing, but there was something else I was looking at yesterday.
The Rocky Mountain Bigfoot guy.
Probably.
Yeah, he was trailing a Sasquatch with a camera, and all of a sudden over the mountaintop comes this cigar shaped UAP. Mm-hmm. It stops right at the peak, and as he's getting up there, his camera just blurs out. No dead battery, whatever. And as he's watching, you see the Squatch get shot up, no light, just straight up into the thing, and it just gone.
And also they've also mentioned that sometimes people see this this white ball of light.
Yes,
fall into the forest, right?
Yes.
Orbs.
Yes.
When they see something like that, right? Have you guys heard?
I think that's
like that?
I've seen
that's transition light from them shape shifting.
I see. I've seen it on Expedition Bigfoot where they got lights and they didn't. There was no Squatch that they got on camera, but they got lights and they were in a really active area. So yeah, they were correlating the two, and they were asking questions, the same kind of questions that we're asking.
Okay. I think it's like
is there a correlation?
The Predator. You know how they bred the aliens when Alien versus Predator as their hunting thing?
Yeah.
How do we know that's not what they're doing with the Squatch?
Could we be dead already?
No, they're not hunting us. They're hunting Squatch.
What is your theory on that?
Now, I hear a lot of stories about that sort of thing, and I don't know.
Yeah,
I haven't experienced anything like that, or
all we could do is read up on it.
Yeah.
And see what other people.
It's definitely interesting. I mean, Washington State is where the term flying saucer came from. I think it was in 1947 or 46.
Isn't that why the Space Needle is the?
Oh wow!
Might be.
Oh,
see, you learn something every day.
That's why.
Next thing you know,
we're connecting the dots.
First ever flying saucer, was found here.
Yeah, it was in 46 or 47. A guy was flying from Seattle to Yakima. I think it was down by Mount Rainier.
Oh yes,
and
yes,
he saw
yes.
a group of 7 of them
Yes.
going at a huge rate of speed, and he said they looked like flying saucers.
Wow, I didn't know.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So last night when we were talking, we were talking about shapes of UAPs, and you guys had mentioned that if it's triangular, it's built by the Navy.
By the Navy,
Yes.
yeah,
right?
Our U.S.
Which
Navy.
was crazy because I didn't know any of this stuff, and what I saw was triangular shaped.
Yes.
Then you said the Army has
Has a
the cigar
cigars.
shape.
Yes.
Yep, or Tic Tac.
So today, or Tic Tac, yep.
Yes.
Today we're talking about saucers. So who
that was probably the prototype.
that? Okay. Oh. Okay.
No, because then you got the
bugs.
the bugs, the insectoids, and then you
Yeah.
got the anukis,
And
and
their
then you got the grays.
Technology isn't as good as the grays of the.
Well, and you go back to Roswell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's stories of teams going out all over the place, not just Roswell, recovering Pennsylvania key something, I think it is. They thought they found a saucer or something, and people saw them truck it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yes.
On the back of a flatbed, covered up in a tarp.
Yeah.
Of all things, a tarp.
Yeah, right.
That was so sneaky.
Well, and the material they were saying was like a metal, but
An alloy that's not from this earth.
yeah, you could flex it, but then you couldn't
like
break it.
mercury.
Yes, that's
Like
that's-
T1000.
Mercury. It was like
basically.
hard. It was like
Yeah.
rigid, but very
Flexible.
pliable.
Yes.
And it didn't heat. You could heat it with a torch
Yeah.
as much as you want, and then grab it, and it'd stay cold.
That's wild.
And,
I mean,
I've heard of they found like foil. You know, you'd crumple it up and it would return to a
Yes.
That's true.
That's what I'm
Yes,
talking
that
about.
was
That's what
Roswell.
I'm talking about.
Yeah,
Yes, I
Roswell.
remember that. I remember that.
That's the same
So-
materials
yeah.
that the triangles are made with.
Okay, so I have a clip here that I want to play for you guys just because it's one of the most recent, since we're going through this phase where a lot of whistleblowers are coming out and talking about what they've seen. If they're ex-military, a lot of these guys are ex-military coming out saying they've witnessed certain things that are in government possession that they're hiding.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
I've seen some
so
of those.
there's one here in particular that kind of took me. I actually had a message Brett when I heard about this gentleman when he kind of spoke about what he have witnessed and what he has seen himself. I want to see and get your guys' perspective on this because I know we're getting close to kind of time. I was
Yeah.
going
Yeah.
to say to wrap this one up, but let's just leave on this note to see kind of like I guess your opinions about this and what do you think. So I'm going to play it right now.
What I'm about to tell you hasn't been something that I've disclosed until recently in the help of Dr. Greer, among other people, so I appreciate your help with this.
So just to give a backstory, he's an ex-Marine. So just, he was the real deal, we want to say.
Yeah.
Michael Herrera.
Michael Herrera. That's his name too. Michael Herrera.
Okay.
In 2009, my unit, which was most degraded infantry battalion in the entire Marine Corps, which was 2nd Battalion, 5th Marines, was called in to do humanitarian assistance operations out in the Philippines, which was Operation Quetzana, which we were attached to the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, which conducts maritime operations all throughout Southeast Asia, in conjunction with the 7th Naval Fleet, which houses one landing helo deck, or LHD, among LPDs, which is what I was on, called a USS Denver. Ironically, that's where I'm from, so kind of felt like home. Now, during that operation in Quetzana in the Philippines, they had actually heard that a tsunami and earthquake hit the western part of Sumatra, which is western Indonesia, Padang City more specifically. Out of all the ships in the 7th Fleet, the ship I was on was the only one that was routed to that location, which was oddly strange, but then again, this is my first humanitarian operation, so I don't know the logistics of it, but the skipper of the ship would probably know that information. So this happened September 30th. We end up getting called and dropped anchor around October 8th. We are briefed in the ward room, which is the officers' mess, where they eat like their cafeteria per se. We're briefed that there is some of President Obama's family members that are present on either in the city or somewhere near there. They had a SEAL platoon that was ready to go to retrieve those people. Us knowing well that Indonesia is also the 2nd largest terrorist capital where they train these guys, and they'll send them up to whatever theater of operation where anybody wants a piece of the United States, they ship them up to go handle it. So we know that well, and we were then briefed that we were going to be armed during this operation, just to also provide security for the transportation coming to basically drop off medical supplies, sheltering items, food, purified water, things like that. So they ended up selecting certain Marines to go ahead and do this. We were only in sticks of six Marines, so it had NCOs on top of other Marines to help with that. So we again boarded CH-53 Super Stallions, which are gigantic helicopters that are roughly 100 feet long. I love the design of them. It's my personal favorite. But we ended up boarding this on the ship, and we flew to the southwestern part of the city, which is Padang. Looked a lot different through satellite imagery that I've recently seen. Back then is a lot different, especially because most of it was decimated, on fire, rubble, flooded, you name it, basically the worst kind of scenario you could ever see. From then, once we touched down on this landing strip, it took probably about 2 minutes. And then again, the pilots got radio confirmation to go ahead and drop us into certain parts. So we again dropped to a hasty LZ, which took probably about 6-7 minutes to fly to from that position. And we dropped to a hasty LZ. We got off the bird, and what we were instructed to do at that point through the briefing was to push to a high ground, at least to get better observation. As a Marine, the tactical advantage that you get from having a observation from a top point is you see everything clearly. You could also, coordinate from there. At that time, we had did a tactical column, which we were able to get eyes on pretty much everything, especially with 6 Marines. So we have the effective communication at that point. If we need to engage, we can properly do it within the amount of ammunition we've got, as well as the weapons that we got, which were only M16A4s. So at that point, we decided to push forward. We trekked up about 300 meters. At this time, I have a Panasonic camera that has the ability to take photographs. It has a ability to take videos, obviously. When we got to this high point, I was taking video camera, and I had actually turned to the north, which just kind of slopes down. And right there was something that stuck out like a sore thumb, especially with jungle terrain, things like that. Vegetation, very green stuff, was something that stuck out so well. It's always going to be basically imprisoned in my mind for the rest of my life, and it has been for 14 years, was something that was rotating, and it was transitioning between colors like a light matte gray as well as a dark matte black. So in between, that's what it kept, and it was very smooth. We had all looked at each other as we got online, and we decided to investigate. The further thing I want to say is that I actually took pictures and video of this before we actually trucked down. We had a dump pouch where we basically, if we expend ammunition, we want to retain our magazines, so we put those there. So I dropped my camera in there, and we decided to go down. We didn't have any communications, which was weird, and that was a very odd thing, and it's something that either could have been good that we didn't, or it could have been something that could have been very bad. And it just however you want to look at that. Once we got down this slope, we were approximately 150 meters away from this craft. When we all got to the point where we could see it, just like behind here, again, Mr. Schratt, phenomenal job. You can see that the craft here actually was roughly about 300 feet. And the reason why I know this is because you could fit 3 of the helicopters that we flew in on underneath this craft. It was rotating a clockwise motion. The panels here that you see, the black ones, at least 3 of them, was like a Vanta black, very dark. I have no idea what that was. On the very top, there was like a pyramid structure that you could see the shadowing of it, which would elicit that was a pyramid structure. And it had an audible hum to it, kind of like a guitar amp if you were to unplug that, or like a transformer. It's very audible. If I was to hear that sound again, I could tell you, okay, it's probably this thing or something similar to that. It's very distinct. And the way that it was floating, which was about 10 or 15, 20 feet off the ground, it was kind of a very eerie thing to see because I've never seen anything like that in my life. When we got up to that point, we were then intercepted by a team of soldiers or rogue military force, if you will. The most concerning thing about this is they all had American dialects. They had American gear. They had OTVs, black. They had black camouflage. They had very similar setups to what we have, but more high speed, something what you would see special operation groups these days have. They had no insignias on. They had no ranks. They had nothing that would signify who they were. They had black ball caps. They had M4A4s that were equipped with ACOGs, which was a step up from what we were currently issued, as well as PEC 16 IR illumination devices that you use for night vision and night patrols, things like that. So we were engaged. We had 8 of them put the drop on us. You could audibly hear them blow the safety selectors off. They basically started screaming at us, telling us what we were doing. We were not allowed to be there. Who were we with? What were we doing there? Threatened that they could kill us right then and there. We could get lost in the jungle. They could throw us out of a helicopter if they needed to. It was very nerve-wracking at that point, especially looking to my fellow Marines and seeing the reactions on their faces too. We were all freaking scared, to say none the less. So with that being said, each Marine was then patted down along with myself. We had our weapons taken from us. They were basically cleared in condition 4, which means they had no round chamber, no magazine in. They dumped our magazines out of our mag pouches as well onto the deck. And then again, because of Marine Corps order, how things are with that, we were told to keep our military ID in our left breast pocket. So they knew that. They asked for our military identification. We gave it to them, obviously, because they have guns in our face. So Provided that to them. They had something that looked like modern day smartphones, but this is 2009, so it's not really as high tech compared to obviously today. So they took some pictures of our military ID, and then they had something that remind me of a BAT system, which is a biometrics tracking system that we would use. This is for insurgents or anything like that. It would take fingerprints, it would take retina scans, it would take pictures of them and document them. So if there's other militaries that were coming to relieve our post, they would actually have this information too to know who they are dealing with. That's what it reminded me of, and I had trouble scanning the IDs. As this is going on, we're going back between these guys as well as what's going on in the background. At that time, there was 4 of these trucks, which were F-350s. They were up armored. They were pretty beefy. They had weapon cases that I've seen before because of something that we've actually loaded weapons into. They had 2 of them that were in the back of each truck. They also had these containers that was illustrated right here, which come to find out through recent revelations from yesterday from somebody who came forward to Dr. Greer. I don't know who they are, but what they had told him and what he has told me is that this gentleman knows exactly what these were used for because they had like a cylinder on the front, which is either for oxygen or what I had hypothesized was for vacuum sealing, which believed me to suspect that they were smuggling narcotics or drugs. Come to find out it's more disturbing than that. This gentleman has first-hand account with this and says that it was for people. It's very disheartening, especially because that part of the world have already gotten ravaged, and it's something that is very hard to see right now because of what I've witnessed, and it's very disheartening. And this is why I'm up here. So they loaded these onto this platform that you can see right there, and as I got up there, like I said, I was going back and forth. These guys are still searching our stuff. They're still, pointing their weapons at us. And after the last 2 trucks that I saw that actually got onto that platform unloaded, they had 4 guys in each truck that would unload everything. However they did it, I can't tell you because, again, I was focused on this as well. And these trucks drove off. As that happened, this platform actually rose up off the ground itself. The top part of the craft actually met it down in the middle like this, and it formed into one solid piece. It floated right above the tree line. As soon as it was able to break that tree line, it actually had on the corners of each of these, which was an octagonal shape craft, by the way, on each corner it emanated a light. It was either red, yellow, green, or blue. Only those 4 colors I can distinctly remember. It didn't make any additional high-pitched sounds when it rose up. Once it got past that tree line, it shot over to the left, basically where the ocean was, at so fast, I would estimate probably 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 miles an hour instantaneous like that. There was no rotor wash, no exhaust that would disturb the trees, vegetation. The coconuts that were on these trees were not even touched. It produced no sonic boom. This thing was so fast. So as that happened, they basically had told us to turn around. As we turned around, kind of a couple things that went through my head at that point was that we're done.
We're getting shot.
They actually started loading our magazines into our back into our vest in a way that would be hard to get them, to put them into a weapon and to actually, charge the weapon and actually put it around in the chamber. So they put those in. They actually slung our M16s on their back for us, but when they did it, Marine Corps not really issued the best gear, especially at that time. So the slings back then were, I would say, subpar quality, cut my neck pretty good, and they, kind of went in that motion and made sure they were secured so we couldn't really get them as easy. And they escorted us back up this slope. And they told us we were not allowed to look back. 2, that we were not able to talk about this. They were actually 2 of the guys. We're actually talking about either, hey, should we smoke these guys right now? That's what they kept saying. It was kind of feeding more into the fear at that point because, again, I don't know who these guys are. I know they had American gear, they had American sidearms as well. If these guys have actually taken an oath like we have, and then why they're going against people like us and even willing to kill servicemen who just even stumbled onto this, it just blows my mind, and it's very sick. So as we broke atop this hill, we decided to book him, and we ran back to the LZ. There was a gunnery sergeant that was attached to the ship. I don't know this gentleman personally, but I know he's very unhappy with seeing us because we had actually had our weapons slung. We were not combat effective at that point if we needed to be. He asked specifically why we were. We didn't tell him exactly why. We just came up with an excuse, and then we waited for the next CH-53 to approach, and we got on board, flew back to the ship. We turned our weapons in back to the armory. We took our gear off back in our berthing, and we went upstairs to be debriefed by an admiral that I've never seen before, and it was kind of somebody who was out of place. I don't know if he has any kind of relevance to this at all, but if that's the case, if he does, I hope he comes forward with that information. It'd be very helpful. So as we're going to go ahead and fast track to a couple days later, which we end up in Subic Bay, which is like the party town in the Philippines. So we had 3 days there of liberty. The first night I come back, because we had to report back to the ship each night, we were not allowed to stay out in town. My rack was on my camera was on my rack, and the memory card that was in it was out, and my battery was out of the camera, missing as well. So all of that was missing. The only thing that was there was the camera. Mind you, I had my locker secured. I had other stuff that was basically piled on top of that camera. So whoever did it knew what the hell happened. So after that, the other thing that was also notable with that was each of the Marines that were with me also had their cell phones taken that they brought. Even though they didn't bring them on the mission, all their stuff was missing. The other stuff, the other people in the actual platoon never had their stuff touched. It was only us 6 that were affected. So fast tracking back when we returned back to Okinawa, one day I had got a call from the duty that was in the barracks. Each barracks has like a duty of Marines that are, making sure there's still order, things like that. He had been told that I needed to go up to the CP, so he informed me, so I had hightailed it up there. And oddly enough, there was nobody in the building, except for one gentleman who was wearing Air Force dress blues that was missing a name tag, which I understand in Air Force policy or regulations that they were supposed to wear a name tag, and he did not have that. I gave him the proper greeting of the day.
So yeah, what do you guys think about that he's a whistleblower coming out and pretty much stated what had happened that day? What do you guys think?
That sounds to me like a big cover-up.
I think there's a lot more that's going to start coming out. A lot, man. Once that period of grace is done, when the people who could no longer harm them are no longer around, it's going to be a lot of people coming out.
So if they kept those, the triangle and the cigar a secret from us, for this long, who knows what else is out there, and that's obviously proof of it.
We know for a fact that they have their own squatches. We know for a fact they have California fires.
Oh yeah, they do. They have their own specimens.
Yeah.
They've had them for a long time.
Lab created or
No.
Well, forest fire. One got killed in Mount St. Helens, and they picked it up by helicopter.
I've heard that story
took
before.
it.
Yeah, they found a body of one, and they somehow the government came through and they took it. There was witnesses that seen that.
Also
and
in
disappeared.
California, same thing.
Yeah.
They've got them and they've taken them and they if there's any witnesses, they make sure that they are not going to say anything.
The crazy story about that one that got caught in the fire, and they thought it was a
human.
Yeah.
And they took him to the hospital to get treatment, and they go into, after the doctors get him stabilized, they go leave, they come back to do some more tests on him, and all they see is charcoal footprints going all the way out the door.
Wow.
He booked.
Tom, what do you think about this one?
I mean, I did 10 years in the Navy myself, and
Okay.
I never personally encountered anything like that. I know I was in a VP squadron, and we were told if we took pictures of something that they could come along and just take our film.
Yeah.
And I've known people that happened to. I didn't get a chance to take any pictures like that, but
Interesting. Okay.
yeah.
Wow.
So what do you think, Brad?
I mean, there's units out there in the Navy. I guess it's been 30 years. I can probably talk about it.
Gold mine.
It's more spy stuff.
Spy stuff, okay.
Nothing. But we had our CO's bird. We were on deployment, and we brought our CO's bird into the hangar to do a maintenance check for a couple days. And for some reason, we were all wondering why we had painted over our big tail logo. We had this big marlin on the tail. And for some reason, the skipper's plane just didn't have it. And we couldn't figure out why. Well, in the middle of deployment, they pulled us in, and this P3 pulls up from the, I can't remember what squadron it was painted up as, but I'm walking by it and I'm like, well, why do they have radio antennas in the middle of all the sonobuoy tube launchers? We don't have antennas.
Yeah.
And I looked a little closer. It didn't actually have sonobuoy tubes launchers in the belly like a regular P3 Charlie would. They were all black paint. Then I started looking at the outside of the plane, and we had these domed windows, two on each side, one in the back, one in the front. So you could actually stick like, get 6 inches out of the plane and look all around.
Yeah.
And they didn't have those. They had flat optical glass.
Wow.
And I never did hear exactly what they did, but that plane got brought in the hangar that night, and the next day they had painted over all the other squadron markings and put our skipper's tail number on that plane. And when it was in the hangar, the big sign, we were all told, you do not go on this plane unless you are escorted by somebody from that thing or from their unit. Do not ask questions. The next day, and a big sign on it, in case of emergency, the parking brake is off, just tow the airplane. Do not get up, do not be up, do not put a brake rider up here, just tow the airplane.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That is.
And they flew around for a few days and they came back and they repainted the plane, different markings, and flew away.
Wow.
Right. Some super secret tech.
I
probably.
wonder.
But Brett, what do you think about this one? This is the one I shared it with you a while back ago. I don't know, but what do you think from your skeptic mind,
Yeah.
true believer, like Tom would say?
About
What do you think? No,
what
the
happened? About that?
Yeah.
Well, there was a lot of alarming things that he was talking about, like having humans vacuum bag.
Yeah.
And, the fact that it's in Indonesia, but then they were on this operation to get Obama's family out.
Yeah.
And there's just so many weird things to it.
Right.
But, for a whistleblower to come out and talk about that stuff, I give them, a little bit more leeway than just any random person coming out.
I give them the brass balls.
Yeah. Because you know what you're up against.
Right.
You're going against the government, right? We've all seen it. So, now it just, I guess with me, with what I've just seen myself and my own belief of my own distrust of my government is what are they using these ships for?
Yeah.
What are they using it for? And it doesn't sound like it's benign.
Right.
And do we have interdimensional travel capabilities?
See, and that goes beyond even where I was going with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was an interview with a guy I saw a while back where he was friends with the VP of the Lockheed Skunk Works.
Yes.
They make all the cool shit.
Yeah.
Pardon my French there. And he said, "You're retired now. Come on, what you got?" Says, "Whatever you think we've got, you're 70 years behind."
Wow.
That's crazy.
So-
I
Like
believe
our-
it.
That's all he would say.
No, it's true
So,
with everything. With
cloning,
everything.
interdimensional.
Yeah.
Frequencies. We talk about frequencies in the body, like how you can channel like levitation. We talked about the pyramids, right? Like
yeah.
off the air yesterday. We were.
What about
for this
the
episode.
They're using
energy
the
drawn
vibration.
from the magnetic field?
Yeah. There's a lot. There's a lot.
Tesla
We don't
stuff.
know. We don't know, man.
Here we are, worried about, a lot of Americans worried about losing their gun rights, right? And the military is probably just laughing like, that's not going to do anything anyway.
They probably got the weapons like Doom, using your voice to fire a proton, just like Doom, and that's crazy.
But and I know we're ending this, but we were talking again last night about how we have all this advanced stuff, but then we've seen history on how there are things like Atlantis and all these things where technology has existed in the past.
Right.
Yeah.
But then there's just some cataclysmic
Something
event that
takes it out.
erases everything.
Right,
Now we're
yeah.
starting from scratch all over again.
That probably happens for a reason.
I'm sure.
I don't think they actually happen. It's just another cover up. The technology's still there. Just we don't get access.
Yeah, it was there, but it got something happened.
Yeah. Got
I
lost.
mean,
Yeah.
But yeah, for sure. No,
We became dumb.
yeah, we're dumbing down for sure. Like I said yesterday, right? We were a lot smarter back then.
Oh, hell yeah.
compared to
Yeah,
now.
I mean, you could look at the stars. You know, I'm looking at the stars because they're pretty, and you know, my ancestors from like eons ago were like, no, actually,
yeah,
navigation,
you need
baby.
this.
Yeah.
You
Seasons.
farm on this day, you do this on this day, and
Yeah.
they know it just by looking at the sky.
like, I thought they looked cool. That's
What
all.
would you do in Washington when you never get to see the stars?
Yeah, so
We got so much forest. There's no farmland. So
right,
Yeah, right. There you go.
Yeah.
You know, this is awesome conversation, of course, and definitely I think these gentlemen will definitely be future guests here in the long run. You know, down the road, we'll definitely have to
thank you
recapture.
so much
Yeah.
for
Okay,
Tom,
so-
thank you for coming on the podcast.
Our
as well.
next one's going to be when we have actual contact.
Okay,
And
there you have it. people.
and
There you have
after
it.
that, you
All heard it.
It's
Good
coming.
things.
It's coming, and it's
Okay.
coming soon.
And Hector, you also we don't want to say too much because we like to keep our guests in suspense here, but we're gonna definitely dive into the realm of UAPs with a source. Let's just say that, right? That you're gonna get us contact with here.
Yes,
Try.
yes.
So we're gonna try.
Oh,
and,
we've got to get a hold
okay.
of this guy. I mean,
Okay,
he
so-
will blow your mind.
Okay, so we're gonna have him in the future, but so what's if you want to let the people know, like, what are some like if you have your own website, your own, like, where can they see your stuff? Because I know I've seen some comments before in the past of like how they can get a hold of your stuff or if they can get in contact with you. Right now is the time if you want to let people know.
Okay, we're our affiliation with Squatchin PNW. That's where you'll find all our Bigfoot expeditions on Facebook.
Okay,
And then Tom, he's with the organization.
yeah, Tom, put in your plugs.
It's Pacific Northwest Research.
Okay.
It's on Facebook.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll put the links down below in the
Yes,
YouTube channel.
and you can
Comment
see all
on
our stuff
YouTube,
on there.
too. If you comment on YouTube, we can get a hold of you that way too.
Okay,
Yeah, we posted all our findings, and you're more than welcome to come in and look at it.
Okay.
Anytime.
Fair enough.
Beautiful.
Fair enough. So with that being said, of course, we want to thank our guests for dropping by again and being part of this episode. So thank you again. But of course, for anybody that's wanting to check out any of our content, make it easier for yourselves. We're on Instagram, Beyond Exposition Podcast. We have direct links in our bio where they'll take you everywhere. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Tune FM Radio, mainstream, all major streaming platforms. We are available. So we're gonna sign this out. Take care, everybody. When this drops, hope you enjoy it. Until next time,
Peace out.
Nice.